it never goes away. Family business myth. I mean, just whenever you think it's hit rock bottom, it goes bottomer. Somehow,
bottom.
yeah, I don't know. Is bottomer a word? More bottom.
Well, I think it's used in the sub community a lot.
Okay. I'm just going to get this out of the way, Richard, because I can't get it off my mind. I mean, I didn't see the Friday episode, if there was one, Freestanders.
There wasn't a Friday. It's Monday to Thursday now.
Oh, is it? Okay, well, that explains it. I cannot stand the Lola thing anymore. I can't do it.
It's over now.
No, she's not dead in the ground yet, mate. There's going to be a full episode or two about putting her in the ground, and then Ben's going to be, I didn't get to see it because I was in the bag. I don't know. I could have saved her. So he's going to start a fight, and the other guy's just going to start yelling at her, and the whiny kid, whatever. What's her name? Lexi?
Lexi.
Yeah. She's going to start. It's not over, me. I wouldn't be surprised if they just bring her back for one more episode. Where
they brought Roxy back as like a ghost to talk to Amy, and I was like, oh, that's scraping the barrel now.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is, don't be surprised if they've got her laid out in a coffin. They don't do open coffins.
I dig that one chick's hair.
In British, and whatchamacallit. Unless you're at a wake or something, then you can see her. But that's an Irish thing. I don't think English people do wakes. They're not.
I don't think they're going to do that. I think we're going to have the funeral either next week or the week after, and that's going to be that. And but it's EastEnders, time moves on quickly. Whitney and Zach were all upset about their baby, and now they seem perfectly happy. Yeah, that was like 3 weeks ago. So
yeah, she couldn't go on anymore, not knowing what was going on. But she's got hope now that Zach and her can have another baby. So there you go. But and it is interesting. The big man comes in. The big man that used to be M's second-hand man in the James Bond films with Pierce Brosnan. He's the big local bruiser now going in. He's a happy man, though. He's a happy guy. He's going around sorting out everybody's problems. But do you think he's going to turn secretly bad? That he's not exactly what he seems, or do you think he's going to start thumping people?
I don't know. It could go either way. There's no need to be defined. He seems like all right bloke. The way he spoke to Nish made me chuckle.
Yeah.
If there's someone on the square that needs putting in their place, it's definitely Nish.
Well, did you see the size difference between the two of them? I mean, he was towering over him. I didn't know if they had him stepping on the pavement.
They had him on the curb.
Oh,
Nish was on the street.
Okay. Because it looked like Nish was a small little man compared.
He is a small little man.
Yeah.
I don't like Nish at all. I've had enough. I want Simply and Eve to be a couple, and I'm glad the Lola thing is over with because it started to bum me out, man. And while we're talking about this, the bloody fox at the end of that episode was unnecessary. All right, it was an unnecessary fox that they just threw in there for obviousness' sake.
Yeah.
It's like the rat at the end of Departed. It's unnecessary.
Well, I mean, I was, she was talking about if she was reincarnated, what would she want to come back? And so the discussion was a fox, and then whenever she dies, then the fox was. Yeah. But
no, I got it, Kevin. I just thought it was unnecessary.
No, I am. I mean, here's the thing. You cannot be reincarnated into somebody else if you're alive or an animal. If it's alive, you have to be. So, in other words, if you're reincarnated, the birth has to be after your death. See what I'm saying? That's my interpretation of reincarnation.
I mean,
You just can't go around possessing things because you're dead. I mean, that's actually
right.
scary.
But like, does time matter to the dead? Can you be reincarnated before you die?
Well, that's a very deep question, isn't it? Isn't it? I mean,
we need a Buddhist monk to explain this to us.
Yes. I mean, if time is circular, maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, maybe time is irrelevant. If you're on the astral plane, maybe you can come back and see yourself. I mean, who knows? Maybe you're right. You're right though. We would need a Buddhist monk to explain it to us, because I don't get it.
Wait, we don't need a Buddhist monk. We've got Google.
Yeah, we
and
just
you
Google it.
get reincarnated before you die. Reincarnation has nothing to do with death. After the death of the body, reincarnation is impossible. What? Oh, this is just anti-reincarnation.
Yeah, that's probably not written in any Buddhist text.
Oh, here we go. Tibetan Buddhists believe that there is an in-between stage known as Bardo, which can take up to 49 days. But Theravada Buddhists from Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia consider that rebirth can be immediate. Those who attain enlightenment do not get reborn upon their death.
Right.
So that fox was bollocks.
Yes. You become an ascended master at that point in time, and therefore you don't have to come back. So
the fox was bollocks. I'm glad we all agree. I'm going to send the BBC a strongly worded letter.
Yes. What was that program that they used to read the letters on whenever everybody got pissed off and wrote in the letter? Was it
I know what you're talking
Have
about.
Your Say or something like that? Or
yeah, it was something like that, but yeah.
Anyway,
I would definitely be one of those people, right? Dear BBC, you've shit all over Buddhist beliefs and ruined a perfectly good death with an unnecessary fox.
all right.
Love, Richard. XOX.
Maybe it's a Hindu thing. Maybe it's a Hindu thing. I mean, who knows?
They come back as cows. Is that racist? Racist.
Because the cow is a sacred being. You know what I'm saying? You can't. I mean, this is the thing. If you go to India, there's cows walking around all over the place. You know what I mean? You got somebody starving in the street, and they'll feed the cow. You know. But India still probably has the caste system in it. You know what I'm saying? Which I always thought was pretty sad. You know, because that's part of it. I mean, you're born into the group of people that you are, and you can look down on other groups of people based solely on who they were born to. So that's why you get characters like that Nish guy. You know what I mean? Just looks down on everybody, and that sort of arrogance. I've lived. I mean, when I was growing up, I lived next to a kid from India, and his family was from India, and they were fairly high up people, and they can be very sort of, I don't know, judgmental of people from India that are not of their caste, and so it's not always great, man. Everybody always says, okay, yeah, we're not the only people in the world who are quote unquote racist or sectarian or whatever. It's not just a thing that's happening, a Western European thing is what I'm saying. But you can't say that too much, because then everybody, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile type thing. Next thing you know, everybody thinks you're, in the British National Party or something. and that you just hate everybody. But anyway, it's Pride Month now in America. Is it Pride Month there too?
Probably. It's usually in the summer.
Well, I mean,
so yeah, you know, if you're an alphabet person, be proud. Apparently, it's no longer LGBT though. It's now 2S LGBTQT.
yeah, and I don't know necessarily if that's going to be really all that popular. To be honest with you, I mean, I think that you know, from my experience, I will say this: a lot of those folks are not as welcoming to other groups as it would seem they would be. And
I know gay people that hate bisexuals. I know a lot of gay people that don't want trans people included with the whole thing.
Right. So I mean, that's my point. You know, it's like you take all these people and you throw them into the common bucket, and then you don't realize from that standpoint they're not always as welcoming as it would seem like it would be. You know, but I think that what happens in that is that when you're that much of a minority, you try to club together with other people who might understand what you're going through, but they don't necessarily do that. You know, it was an interesting thing in America because at some point, I think it was up until sometime in the 1950s or 60s, there were some states that wouldn't sanction an interracial marriage. You know what I mean? And I remember talking to somebody whenever the idea of same-sex marriage came up, and I said, "Well, what would you think if 40 years ago you couldn't have gotten married?" And it was always, "Well, it doesn't matter." You know what I mean? Whatever happened, but that doesn't mean that I think same-sex marriage is right. You know what I mean? So a lot of times you're thinking that groups would be empathetic of other groups, but they're not always necessarily. So that's the thing. I don't know the answer to that one, mate. Maybe you could figure it out, but it just seems to me from that standpoint, that's the go-to group of people that you shit on in America right now. So that's what, but I mean, Irish people went through that, Italian people went through that, black folks.
Muslims have just been through that.
Yeah.
It's whoever gets.
We're not so worried about the old Muslims so much more. We're worried about these trans people making their kids trans. And I don't know.
Yeah. Did you see that? What Carol wrote on Facebook? Oh, and I'm not pro-trans. I think it's a mental health disorder. But what she was writing was just.
What were they all groomers or something?
All groomers, and she doesn't want kids near them. No, I'm not personally pro-trans. As I said, I think it's a mental health disorder. But live your life. Live your life.
Yeah,
as long as it's not.
But what do you consider? I mean, trans is one of those things where you're trying to lump a lot of people into it. Is a drag queen trans?
No.
Well, that's what I think too. You know what I mean? Cross dressers,
that's different.
Transvestites, and
transsexual is when you identify as a member of the opposite sex or non-binary, whatever that is.
Right. But what I'm saying is that's all thrown into that group, and so it's a very. I mean, like I said, I don't know how many people go through the actual transition. I don't know. I have a family member that was trying to transition at some point and never went through it. It was on hormones and everything like that to change it, but never actually went through with it. So I see the arguments on some people's point, but when you're an adult, that's a different thing. I mean, but I really, really, really think the amount of children or people who are under 18 that go through that process to actually then have a sex change is minuscule. You know what I'm saying? And I just don't
And
think.
children cannot make that decision.
Right.
That is not something a child can do. If a child is making that decision, one of its parents is pressuring into it. I will never believe that a child can make that decision for themselves.
Well, I think it's one of those things where I don't think you should be. I mean, in my opinion, unless it's a special I always believe in extenuating circumstances, but I would say in the vast majority of that, you shouldn't be able to transition to another sex before you can at least drive. You know what I mean? And so, because I mean that's you get to a certain level and then you can transition to another. But that doesn't. And if you do that after a certain amount of time, you're an adult and you're doing that. Though, I mean, that's it. People can do whatever they want to when they're adult, whether we like it or not. And that's the thing where, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
It's a tricky line, isn't it? Like trans women, quotation mark, competing in women-only sports. I'm like,
Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked about that before, but here's the thing that is the real driving force behind it. If you had, I mean, let's look at it honestly from another perspective, because we can always say that they should do this, they shouldn't do that. But if you look at the real reason, now a lot of people will use trans athletes as an excuse. I really believe that. But I mean, obviously, I would have a problem with a trans person at that young age sharing a locker room with my girl. I mean, that's one of those things. But competing with them is a totally different thing from my perspective. Now, the reason that people go through high stakes athletics, honestly, is to get an athletic scholarship to go to university, because universities are so expensive. And so to get a scholarship at a university or not makes a huge difference between people going to university in America or not. And so if you had lower cost universities that you could, that you could maybe get a free education at or whatever for everybody. Now, I understand that's not very popular in the United States, but if you could do it, I mean, it used to be popular because you used to be able to do it, but now it's not, and it's so expensive. But if you could do away with that, I believe that you would do away with a lot of the objections to having a male athlete, that considers himself to be a lady, than taking up sports with ladies. Now, I mean, there's always to me, there's always another motivation behind it. You know what I mean? And that's the way I look at that. So you take away that thing, you're taking away that stigma. But it's easy for people to sort of use these wedge issues to manipulate the system, and I think that's part of it. The amount of people, because historically or statistically speaking, in America, young people especially are very accepting of people of other ilks. Parents that are, my age, maybe not as much, but probably are, because they went through it. And so, again, They just want their kids to go to college. They want their kids to be successful and get the best leg up that they can. And so a lot of times the children are driven to do sports that they really, don't really enjoy from that standpoint. And by the time, like, for example, my son played soccer or football at a young age and was very, very good at it. Like I said, got a scholarship to go to university, then ended up being on the Northern Ireland underage squad, and as a goalkeeper, and was very, very good at it. But then by the time that he got to the point where he was playing professionally in Northern Ireland, he just didn't want to do it anymore. He just said, this hasn't been fun for a while. I don't want to do it anymore. And that was it. Even though he had trials at like Chelsea and Man United and stuff, he just didn't want to do it anymore. So what am I supposed to do? Yeah, which is what am I supposed to do at that point in time? Force him to do it? So, I mean, I've been around high class athletes before, and watched parents just screaming at kids because they just aren't into it anymore, or they want to quit when they're 16 and they just aren't into it anymore. They're just not into it anymore, and these people have invested tens of thousands of dollars in their kid, at this point in time, and they can't handle the fact that the kid doesn't want to do it anymore. And so if you add, if you're in a female sport like that and you add a male to it, yeah, you're pissed off because this kid's stronger than yours and maybe faster than yours and such. And so you're like, no, that kid could take away my kid's spot. Because what are you looking at to become a professional athlete? 1%, top 1% maybe? And I know that's one of those things where people will go behind the scenes, talk shit about your kid, talk shit about you, talk shit about everything, and will try to find any excuse to get you excluded from doing a sport because, that gives their kid a one-up. So, I mean, that's my perspective, from my history. But,
Pretty good.
Yeah. So, other than that.
How did we even get down this rabbit hole?
Oh, because I said it was Pride Month.
Yeah, it is your fault. You're right.
No, I mean, but I don't think there's anything wrong with addressing it. I mean,
no. You're an alphabet person. Be proud. Wear your rainbow colors. Go and have a dance. Just, be happy. Be yourself. Live your life, champs. Unless, of course, you're French. Then
yeah, you're
just not.
I mean, that's
just
obviously French people are not allowed to do that. But I would say, if you're in an area that is a highly conservative area in America, probably don't get your tits out or show your dick.
Yeah, don't. Not in a conservative area.
I mean,
they're getting quite insane over there right now.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's not helping. You know what I mean? And but that's some of those things that you look at it from that standpoint. Some people break common decency laws in public. That's not just a gay thing. It's not just anything, but
oh man, straight people that make out in public gross me the fuck out too. Heck them.
I'm not.
I love me a transvestite though.
On the front of it, showing everybody.
Drag queens, they on point.
And on that note, let's move to the topic. This week. The topic. So Gabby shared with me an interesting story that I wanted to have a bit of a natter about tonight.
Yes.
Basically, there's this building, the Davenport building in Iowa. It's an apartment complex, and it collapsed last week.
Right. Tragedy.
A huge chunk of it.
Have you heard about it, Kevin?
The whole thing fell apart. Yeah, tragedy, you would expect. Then a demolition crew turned up to knock the rest of it down, it was structurally unsound. And then it turned out there were people still in there.
Right. Yeah.
So that turned into a bunch of people turning up to protest them doing the demolition. Gabby went down there and checked it out. And apparently it went from a protest to a vigil to a sort of vigil that was sort of protesting.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately in America, sometimes it's a very, very weird thing that they do. I remember there was a Hard Rock Cafe they were building in New Orleans, and it collapsed, and there was 2 people inside, 2 workers, and they basically just left them in there. And then so, the funny part about it is, that was when they were building it, and there was some controversy about whether somebody got paid off to, change the plans, or whether they were, cutting corners and things like that. You've had that thing in Florida, I think it was about 3 years ago, where the apartment or the condo building just pancaked on people, just fell like a stone on one concrete thing onto another. And then this was supposedly a building that had been there for quite some time, and there was all kinds of safety issues, and the owner was supposedly going through the process of trying to upgrade it or something like that. But I mean, this is just the thing. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was just getting some media ready.
No, but I'm just saying that what happens in these buildings, I think, is it's weird. You don't hear of that happening really in any other. Well, I mean, unless it's India or something like that, where houses collapse all the time, things like that. Why is it that in America that these things just happen? Obviously, this was a low income property, and was quote unquote a shithole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where people are living in substandard conditions because they can't afford to live anywhere else, and we don't provide things like council houses in America. So you're basically at the whim of a landlord. Some slumlords are not so great. We've had a president that was, accused of being a slumlord. But anyway, go ahead with your film then.
Yeah, this is the recording of the person who was. This is after it's collapsed, and someone lets the demolition crew know that there's people still in the building. For context. Clock. Yeah, So yeah, someone could have done a little bit of a better, thorough search of the building before they decided there's the collapsed part of the building.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's people still in it, which is beyond scary if you think about it, because they had like a dynamite and a wrecking ball and everything. They were going to take this whole building down, and there's people still alive in it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing where they do this cursory search with the cadaver dogs or whatever, and and then they try to just get rid of it as soon as possible. I think that it's funny because if it's private property or something like that, the landlord's pushing for it because, is he liable if somebody gets put in there and then, it collapses on them or not? So, I mean, for liability reasons, the landlord's probably said, yeah, knock it down. And, but I mean, we search for people in Mexico longer than when they search for people there. You know what I mean? It was 3 days and they said, okay, nobody's left. Okay, we're going to knock it down. We're going to look for a body.
It wasn't even 3 days. I mean, this thing happened really quickly.
Yeah.
The whole thing happened very quickly.
Well,
yeah, like Gabby's saying in the chat, they'd done the search and rescue. They had ratified the building was clear, and they were getting ready to knock it down.
Right. Except it wasn't.
So if it wasn't, And it makes you wonder how many other people. It was overnight, yeah, everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, this happens to all kinds of people where, soldiers are left for dead, for example. I know that happened in the Falkland Islands, and they basically have to crawl across, the country to try to, get help. There was one guy that was a Scottish guard that got shot in the head, and everybody thought he was dead, but left him there. And then 6 weeks later, he turns up, somewhere else after eating bugs and drinking water and trying to make it through. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but he lived. But this happens, and at a certain point in time, you become a statistic if you're not somebody. I mean, before I was talking about the caste system, it's sort of. I mean, in Britain, it's sort of like that, isn't it? I mean, Prince Harry disappeared. They'd be all over looking for him for months, If it's just some bloke from Newcastle, don't worry.
Yeah, they're not going to spend too much time looking for someone from Newcastle. No.
Yeah. In other words, if you're a Geordie, you're a goner.
Don't go missing if you're a Geordie.
Yes. Oh, by the way, I was looking at something. We were looking at the coastline down by Dover, and we could not find a beach that didn't have, even at high tide, that wasn't sort of 30 feet long. And then was very shallow, like to a certain point. So all I'm saying is.
You're still on this. It's been 6 months.
No, I understand, but I don't know what was realistic is if Alfie would have. I mean, what was it? Not Alfie. If Mick would have jumped off and then just gone splat, broke his neck, then we would know.
I mean, he should have just been spread eagled on a rock or something, shouldn't he? I mean, I'm with you, but it has been 6 months.
Yeah, no, I'm focusing on things that I shouldn't focus on. But I was just looking at the White Cliffs of Dover one day because we were talking about taking the ferry from Dover to Calais, and I said, well, yeah, Calais is very, very, the way that the sand goes out. I said it's always been sort of easy to get a boat up into there and load up. And Dover is not so much, but Calais, the gradual slope into the water. So after that, I said Dover to Calais, and then it just got out of hand. As with everything that I do, I start to look at other things, and
the mind wanders.
It really does. I mean, I just follow down some pathway, and then I get sort of, oh, well, that's good. I want to watch that. And then, but it all seems to come back to a single point, But I think that this thing was a tragedy. I think that, if it wasn't full of poor black folk, maybe things would have been a little bit different. And I hate to have to say that.
I know I'm making you say that, but yeah. And as Gabby points out, the owner's only got a $400 fine for the unsafe building.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the way that it goes, isn't it? I mean, if the fine is not substantial, why would you fix it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is after the collapse.
$100 fine. I'm not going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to upgrade this building if I can get away with a $400 fine, and that's the way it goes. Whether these people, whether they have a conscience about the people in it, I guess that person has to talk about that. The person has to deal with that in themselves. That's the thing. I would be, even though I'm not Catholic, I would be down at the Catholic Church making some kind of confession at this point in time, so that God would let me into the gates of heaven.
in Fox form.
Right. That's it.
Or
Come
like
back.
normal
Come
form.
back. Yeah. So,
Come back as an unnecessary fox.
well, people love foxes, don't they? And you know, what was interesting when Sam was when we were in London.
Nest cam footage. Yeah, I've seen the Nest cam footage.
Yeah,
You like to play the Nest cam footage?
do it. But Sam's not hot. Maybe that
You
was
sent me a
both.
Twitter link. Gabby, you sent me a Twitter link. I hate Twitter. It's bad enough I use Facebook. Twitter.
Well, then we can talk about Elon Musk for a while.
What about Elon Musk? What's he doing? Oh, here we go.
He owns Twitter.
He owns Twitter. Oh yeah, he does. Here you go. It's the Nest cam footage. This is just more of the same.
Yeah, but I mean, what's interesting about it is that look how close that fence is to the building. You know what I mean? It's not that far away. And the thing that always cracks me up is half or more of those people are there to see a person go splat. You know what I mean? They're gawkers. They love it. You know what I mean? That's the irony of it. And then they sit there and go, "Oh, I saw that. Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible." But secretly, they want to see it. It's like whenever everybody slows down on the highway to see a car wreck because you want to see blood and gore. I don't know. What's our topic for the week there, Mitty? Or is that the topic for the week?
This is it. This is what I was wanting to talk about. Was this building collapsing and the protest dash.
Yeah.
There you go.
So have they flattened the building by now? Do you know? There you go. There's some.
I don't know. Ask Gabby. Gabby, have they flattened the building? Or are they still looking for survivors? So it's going to be on the right side. Yeah, crumble. Bit of nothing to worry about. That's just a bit of brick just falling away. A little bit more brick falling away there. More.
Yeah, well, a lot of those things are motion activated, are they? You don't see it until it actually starts moving.
No, you see it.
So what's happened here is
Oh, man, there you go. There you are.
basically they've used obviously something really shit for the supporting frame, and it's just buckled, and the whole thing's just come down.
Well, that looks like a building that could be 100 years old. You know what I mean? It looks like Al Capone could be living in that, or something. I mean, I don't know what it was originally built for, but probably maybe a hotel that they turned into, some sort of a thing. But it's probably really, really old. I mean, to me, it looks like it's 100 years old. And maybe because usually you make bricks, around where you're going to use them. So maybe the mix that they were using was not so great. But bricks deteriorate, don't they? I mean, and where was it at? Is it Kansas City, Missouri, or
Iowa?
Iowa? Yeah, I mean,
Davenport, Iowa.
Davenport, Iowa. Okay. Well, I mean, you can't go back. You can't go back and sue the builders. That's for sure. But
We could see their children.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that brick manufacturer is probably long gone.
Do you think there was someone that was like, stuff will last 100 years, and it's like lasted 99.9 years?
Right. Well, it could have been Friday, and they just said, okay, we'll add some straw to that one. We'll get away with it. Don't worry, lads, it'll be fine. You know, like whenever they, back in the days, whenever people said that they had Fords and stuff, and Chevys and those different types of things back in the 70s, and they take the door panel off to try to fix a window regulator or something like that. They find a beer can in the door, and then you're like, maybe these people that put this together were not, as diligent as the union says they are whenever they're looking for a raise. It's always an interesting thing whenever because I live next to the plant where, well, I don't live next to it, but it's about half an hour away, where they build 747s for Boeing, And then you look at some of the people who make it, and you're like, I'm flying Airbus, man. You know what I mean? Not that French and German people would be very fastidious, but I would imagine that some of the French workers, not so much. And then you're like, how does this thing stay?
Those French.
Yeah, well. But I mean, it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing whenever you're looking at it, and then you say to yourself, it's even though airlines flights are way more safe than driving on the freeway, for example, it's still scary, that something's going to fall apart on you.
No one needs that stuff falling apart on you.
Well, I mean, I remember back in the 90s, I think it was in the 90s or something like that, there was a flight, a Hawaiian Airlines flight, just basically the top of a section of the roof just ripped off in flight. And so, like, the air, I don't know what you call them now. I was going to say hostess, but that's probably not PC. But the airline attendant got sucked out of the roof, and basically everybody else, put their seatbelts on. The cabin depressurized, and they landed it safely, but still, can you imagine?
I do like kicking my nose.
Of an airline, and just the top decides to become a sunroof.
Oh Jesus!
That would definitely be shit your pants scary.
Yes, I think that I would evacuate for sure. For sure.
For sure.
Don't know what else you'd do in that situation.
Right. And then somebody got charged this last 2 weeks for deploying the big inflatable slide.
Ah.
And I guess that cost like over $100,000. And you can always
put it back.
Yeah, that stuff. That's not a joke. But like back when I worked for Weatherspoon, we had a system in the kitchen where if you pulled a ripcord, it would just spray foam. It was only to be used in emergencies for if a fire got out of hand. And one of the new employees pulled it for a joke. They got shit canned and fined and all sorts.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's a terrible thing. It was always interesting to me. Like we had.
You can't push the buttons they don't push.
Fire alarm. To try to get out of school, or calling a bomb threat or whatever. And it's just like I can't even imagine doing that now. you know, when we were kids, we used to get away with a lot of different stuff, you know, because they wouldn't find out who it was or, you know, whatever. But now with fingerprint technology and all those different things, I mean, I think it's interesting, Richard. Even whenever you're looking at these cameras that caught the building falling apart, those are not government cameras. You know what I mean? Those are people's cameras in their houses for surveillance. I mean, that's that idea that you're always under surveillance now, you know, and you've got your phone with you. They know where you are. You can't get away. I mean, you can't get away with mucking about like we did when we were kids, you know? And,
no. There's just too many cameras.
Right. And so from that standpoint, what would you think? What would you think that should happen to the person who, I'm sure that in a civil, there will be civil lawsuits that people's family will sue the owner of the thing. We're too soon for that yet, but I mean, if the guy only really gets a, you know, if he's not decided to be a criminal and he has a $400 fine, that's not the end of it for the guy. You know what I mean? From that standpoint, I'm sure he's going to get raked over the coals by some attorneys that are I mean, you know, sad part about America is, you know, that will be a no fee, no win situation, and so they'll you know, try to brutally punish the guy, which you should, in my opinion. I mean, that's the thing. You should.
Definitely. I mean, that's not a joke. That's not something you should do.
But I've noticed that in Britain, the amount of settlements are a lot less than they are in America. You know what I mean?
The criminal justice system in England is an absolute joke. You don't even get life for murder. You get 20 years max, and you can be out in like 10 years for good behaviour. For murder.
Right.
Not like manslaughter. For actually murdering someone. It's an absolute joke over here. Well,
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, when Britain did away with the death penalty, well, they used to hang people, but when they did away with that, it became, I mean, Britain was woke before America was woke, quote unquote. You know what I mean? And you know, from that standpoint, it's like, okay, I think when it first started out, you would get 30 years for murder, you know, as a life sentence. And then it got dropped to 20 years. But I mean, you know, that's, I mean, 20 years, depending on how old you are, it's not that much, is it? You know?
No.
And, you know, especially if you could murder somebody at 18 and be out at 28, that is farcical. Farcical.
It's a joke, like I said, an absolute joke.
Now, that's an English thing. I mean, you know, like I said, you know, what people don't understand about the United Kingdom is there's no uniform code of justice between just like Scotland and England. It's different. And so, you know, Northern Ireland, I don't know, you know what I mean? But I mean, you know, like if I let's put it this way. I signed the Official Secrets Act in Britain. And if I talk about any of that stuff, I would actually go to jail for longer than 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So does that make any sense? About something that I saw or was involved in, you know, 30.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
That's all he's saying.
Yeah.
That's Kevo's opinion. Anything interesting happening in Bigfoot?
Oh, yeah, there was. Thomas, okay, so remember last time I said that Richter was at that conference in Fort Washington?
Yeah.
Well, apparently Thomas Seawood and Todd Neese got in an altercation. So Todd was asked to leave. So there was a fight. The people who, the Olympic Project folks didn't stick around. So the event was very small. People who were speakers didn't even stay. They just went back to their thing and hung out. So, I mean, I feel sorry for the people who put it on. I mean, you would think that a speaker group would stick around for that. As you know, as far as new things in Bigfoot, I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anything at all. Like I said, again, I don't understand why people are using AI technology to hoax. Get with the program. I mean, you know what I mean? When you can make sort of cheap videos of stuff, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we using Wag the Dog technology that you have on your home desktop to like make a situation? You know, I don't know. You remember that film, Wag the Dog? Did you ever see it?
I've seen Wag the Dog now.
Well, it's a kind of an interesting movie where, so it's a political movie in a way. And so they basically create a war in the Balkans. And it's not real. And basically what it is they film all this footage on a green screen and everything like that. And they show it on the news every night. Everybody gets worked up about it so that this person who's the president, I think it was the president, can then, act like he's fighting for America or some, fight for freedom, justice in the American way. And it's not true at all. It's just basically the idea that you can create a news story and that news story can benefit you, which is exactly what happened. What's going on right now? It's a thing. I mean, people manufacture stories about stuff that aren't true.
We live in a post-truth society.
Yeah, but what does that? I mean, how does that work? Is it from that standpoint? Well, I mean, I suppose it means that nobody trusts. I mean, you can't say it's post-truth, but not post-belief. You see what I'm saying? It's an interesting sort of a psychological point where you know you're being lied to, but you believe it anyway. I don't understand that. Like, on Fox News, for example, they had to settle for $800 million for lying to the people. And then people still watch it. People still watch it until Tucker Carlson got fired. And then people stopped watching it. But they didn't care that Tucker Carlson was lying to them. And the thing that I find is interesting that whenever Tucker Carlson got fired, they never, all the conservative radio hosts and pundits and stuff like that, they never say, they don't care about the fact that he lied. What they care about is how much of an audience he has and how much money he can bring in. They don't care about the lying. They don't care about that any of that was not true. They don't even talk about it. It's how much of a commodity he is and how much money he's going to bring to either himself or somebody else whenever he can create either a Twitter place or whatever is, however he's going to give news away.
Yep.
Just don't care.
Just don't care.
That's it. It's interesting, whenever you have all these different news sources and things like that. What I find interesting was when people really turned on the BBC, because the BBC used to be known as sort of world class. That was that, and then but I would say, what was it, about 6 years ago, people really started turning on the BBC because hadn't they lied about something in the story? And I can't remember what it was, but they just, a lot of conservative folks just thought that the BBC was too liberal and they didn't want to pay their rates for the TV license.
And who could blame them? Those rates are exorbitant.
Well, I think what was it? I mean, I think it was it for a year. I think it was 90 quid or something the last time I was back home. And you have to, and you can buy a license just to watch it on the internet. I find that funny whenever they're, whenever I log into the BBC with my, what do you call it? What do you call that? VPN, excuse me. That it still asks me for my postal code and everything like that. So and it says, "Do you have a TV license?" You're not supposed to watch it unless you have a TV license. At least live. You can watch the other ones without a TV license if you have a VPN. The stories that they add on there later, like you can watch EastEnders the day after.
I remember licensed inspectors as well. Way back in the day, they used to come to your house and check if you had a TV license or not.
Well, they used to have TV detector vans, and they used to drive around with an antenna on the top of it. And supposedly they could tell whether you were using a TV or not. I didn't know how you could do that. If you were using a TV through an aerial, how can they monitor that? That never made any sense to me. But the television detector van, and then they would come to your door and they would ask whether you had a license or not, because obviously they must have a list of who has a license and who doesn't. But,
I never understood that. I mean, you can still watch ITV in theory without a license.
Yes. maybe they were listening to see whether they were like what do you call those parabolic mics?
Oh, God.
Just driving over.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's funny about it is, with a parabolic mic, I know a little bit about them, but your window in your room also becomes a speaker, so your window will vibrate, especially whenever you have single pane glass, and you can put a parabolic mic on a window, and you can hear very, very small conversations through that. I mean, I remember in Northern Ireland they used to fly Gazelle helicopters over certain neighborhoods at 2,000 feet, because that was beyond AK-47 range. And then they would drop a microphone down, and they would listen to people on the street with this microphone. And, a lot of people got caught doing bad things through that. But the amount of technology, I mean, this was in the 70s and 80s. So the amount of technology that they have to try to find things is huge, Or they used to.
They don't need that stuff anymore. Everyone's going to bloody spy in their pocket.
Right.
Tell the government anything they want to know about. It's like these people that are going on about 5G and the birds are drones. And I'm like, you've got a cell phone. You use Alexa. What do you think those things are? That's the real spyware.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that, whenever we were talking about the vaccine, and people said they were going to get shipped by the vaccine. And I just said, RFID signals only go up to about 30 feet. And they don't transmit, you know what I mean? They from that standpoint, because it doesn't have a battery in it. So basically, you have to basically, be close enough to use it. Whereas you've got a cell phone, and people say, well, I'll just turn my cell phone off. Well, they're smart enough to figure out when you turn your cell phone off. When you turn your cell phone off, actually, it doesn't make it any better or any worse, from that standpoint. When you turn it off, you'll turn it back on again. They'll know exactly where you're going just from the lack of information. I mean, I tried to make that point to somebody this week. I said, if you've got all this information and then you have no information, and that's what people don't talk about, that's what you actually start focusing on. what you don't know. Everything else you do know. But you know, that's the funny thing, and I can't believe that. For example, people who are older don't realize that maybe recording things on that everything can be recorded now.
Oh, they watching everything.
And this always comes up. There's always some weird recording of somebody saying something, you know, that they shouldn't.
Yes, we've all heard your lecture on eugenics. Yeah, I know, you didn't know anyone was recording. It's fine, Kevin, we get it.
Well, I mean, you know, that's the thing with it. You know, it is funny that people can listen to you in your house, people can listen to you in public. In America, you can film people.
There's no privacy.
You know, the First Amendment. You know, whenever you got me down this road of First Amendment auditors or whatever, where these people just go. I mean, for some reason now, I just watch that all the time. Thank you very much, Richard.
You're welcome. I don't know how you could stand it. It got very old with me very quickly. I was like, this is all exactly the same video.
Well, you know, for people who don't know, they go to places, and although they say they're just auditing, they can be very abrupt, abusive to the people there, but they have a right to film in public. That means
okay. I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, these people are unemployed, losers, bullying pieces of shit that failed at life and now take out their frustrations on public servants and pretend they're fighting for your constitutional rights. Okay?
Right. I mean, that's the thing where, you know, you go to a thing, you know, building, and then they say, oh, it's a public building, I can go into the lobby or whatever. And even if you go into the lobby and the local statute is or policy that is that you can't film inside a building, whether it's a mental health clinic or a post office or, you know, somewhere where somebody's going to drug rehab or mental health or whatever, they say they have a right to film it. And then somebody comes out and says, you know, we don't really want you to film in public, and then they just start abusing people. So I mean, but you know, even if you're out of sight of a building on a sidewalk, people can film you. Just know that. You know, and these characters come up, and they know that a lot of people that are cops like grab their camera and throw it on the ground or whatever, and then they try to get them fired.
Yeah, I don't like them. They're scumbags.
But
that'll wrap us up for this week. However, yeah, you pick the topic.
Well, do you want to talk about you know, the types of government or not, or do you want to try something?
Oh, I forgot about that. Damn it. Yeah. Okay, we'll do that next week. We'll do that.
Okay. Well,
types of government. That'll be better with Tom as well.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree.
All right, that'll wrap us up for this week. We will return next week, despite the hopes of many. It's good night from me, and it's good night from Tom. Oh,
yes,
Kevin.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Thank you. Thank you for including me in that. It's Pride Month. Go be prideful.
Yeah, no
matter who you are, be proud, be loud.
Asterix, except for the French.
Yes. Although, no, Bastille Day is next month, isn't it? Are you getting your tickets ready to fly over to Paris so you can see it?
I hate France. I will never go to France. All right. See you guys. Good night.
Ta-ra.